Buzz is really good at crash landing. Or maybe just at falling. With style. Hey everybody, welcome to Mainely Movies. Today I'm going to be talking about Pixar's 2022 animated sci-fi action spin-off, Lightyear. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for variety movie-related content like reviews, ranked lists, and trailer reactions. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all of that extra content. Lightyear stars the vocal talents of Chris Evans, Keke Palmer, and Peter Sohn, and was directed by Angus MacLane. It's the in-universe movie that young Andy saw prior to Toy Story, and tells the origin story of Buzz Lightyear as he tries to save a community that's been marooned on an alien planet. Lightyear is the first theatrically released Pixar film since Onward, more than 2 years ago. And as much as I would have liked to have seen any of the last 3 films on the big screen, somehow it's fitting that the first one back in theaters is a spin-off of Pixar's first movie ever. I'll admit, when this movie was first announced, I was not excited for it at all. A Buzz Lightyear spin-off movie seemed like a dull, cash-grabby way to keep the franchise alive, and I would have much rather had a Toy Story 5. But then the teaser trailer was released, and this movie clicked for me. It wasn't just a spin-off. It was an in-universe movie. That new angle sold me, and even though I still wasn't super hyped for it, I was extremely curious to see how they were gonna explore this idea. And I gotta say, that premise and meta-ness is probably the most satisfying thing about the film for me. The trailers made it pretty obvious, but this film starts by outright saying it. This is the film that 6-year-old Andy saw in the early 90s. This is the reason he wanted a Buzz Lightyear toy, which, of course, was the instigation for the entire Toy Story franchise. It might not be a concept that'll work for everybody, but as a big fan of the Toy Story franchise, I thought that this was such an interesting idea, and a unique way to tie into what we already know. Since this is an in-universe movie, it's only tangentially related to Toy Story. Obviously, it stars Buzz Lightyear, but it's not the toy version that we know. It's the movie character that inspired the line of toys. Since this is a film that technically came out before the events of Toy Story, none of the other characters that we know and love show up, but there are enough dialogue callbacks and visual references to keep fans of Toy Story satisfied. Even though this is a part of Pixar's oldest and longest running franchise, Lightyear is a fairly unique film for them. They've obviously made plenty of sequels and even a few spin-off films, but this is definitely a new direction, and I think an interesting experiment. Rather than a coming-of-age story featuring talking toys, Lightyear is a 90s-inspired sci-fi action film. It's still got the humor and occasional cute elements of any Pixar film, but this is probably their grittiest movie. Pixar gritty, mind you, but still. Even though it's a futuristic space adventure, this movie has a very grounded and lived-in feel to it. Space suits get dirtied up, characters get minor injuries over the course of the film. It's an action movie, and draws inspiration from and directly references any number of sci-fi films. Star Wars, some of the Star Treks, Aliens, 2001, even more recent films like Interstellar and Galaxy Quest. It's a very fun and exciting film, with some really fantastic animation. But those similarities to other movies do make it feel a bit familiar and surprisingly unimaginative for a Pixar film. The first act is great from a plot perspective. It establishes this version of Buzz, sets the stage for the story, and even has the film's only traditional Pixar tearjerker moment. But once the meat of the story gets underway in the second act, the story just kind of coasts. It's a fun space adventure, but feels a little uninspired. The plot is pretty by the numbers from that point onward, and it spends a lot of time focusing on some somewhat heavy-handed messages about the importance of teamwork and making the best of any situation. It's still very good. The framework's there, but it just can't quite deliver on the heart, and is lacking in that usual Pixar spark. This is a film that seems aimed at a slightly older demographic than is usual for Pixar. It feels tailor-made for people like me, who grew up watching the Toy Story movies, but also have a foundation in sci-fi action films of the era, too. It's got its elements that kids will enjoy, some of the humor, and definitely Socks the cat, who absolutely stole the show, but it won't capture the imagination of most kids in the way that Toy Story does. But I think that's okay. If you're gonna make a spin-off movie, you might as well make it different. As long as it was Andy's favorite movie, that's all that really matters. It does beg the question, however, why did Andy never have a socks toy? Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. Pro number one is the premise. The story itself is kinda standard for a sci-fi action movie, but the concept here of an in-universe movie is just infinity and beyond cool to me. People who aren't already existing Toy Story fans might not feel the same way, but I love the idea that this was a movie in the Toy Story universe that spawned the Buzz Lightyear craze. That this was the movie that Andy saw when he was a little kid. It just adds this cool extra dimension to both Toy Story, but also this movie. The second pro is Socks. I'll be honest, heading into this movie, I was definitely not expecting to put this on the pros. As impressed as I was by the trailers, Socks seemed like a very random and kinda irritating character. But he ended up being the standout here, and I liked him even more than I liked Buzz. All the best moments of humor come from him, and he's just a very cool and useful character. He's still a little random, but there's some emotional significance to his presence, plus he's a nice little reference to both Star Wars and Alien. The third pro has gotta be the animation. This is a Pixar movie, so I'm sure this pro comes as no surprise, but I still have to mention it. It takes that almost photorealistic style of Toy Story 4, but adds a grittier 80s or 90s movie quality to it. The environments and character designs are great, but it's got some really cool and intense moments of action that are animated phenomenally well. There's a spacewalk sequence that's very impressive, but my favorite is during one of Buzz's mission attempts. On the con side, the biggest issue is the plot. Now, I will say that it's far from bad, and I actually really like the story during the first act, but things become a little lackluster as the movie goes on. It draws inspiration from a lot of other sci-fi action films, but then doesn't really do anything particularly creative with that inspiration. It's fine, and definitely enjoyable, but isn't quite as interesting or inspired as you might expect from this concept, or from Pixar. That segues nicely into my second related con, which is the lack of Pixar spark. I realize it might be a little unfair to compare this film against the studio's other output and knock it as a result of that comparison, but with a studio like Pixar, it's hard not to expect certain things. As an in-universe spin-off movie of their biggest franchise, it makes sense that things are a little different. I actually like many of those stylistic differences here, but it just feels like it's missing something. It's got the humor, it's got some nice themes, it has a little bit of an emotional punch at times, but that heart and difficult to describe Pixar-ness just isn't really there. It's still a fun movie, but doesn't have that lasting resonance that you expect from the studio. Before I give you my rating and recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying Lightyear or any of the other films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you'd use them if you're in the market for any of these movies. I'm gonna give Lightyear 3.5 out of 5 paws. The plot may be overly familiar to fans of sci-fi action films, and it never quite captures the typical Pixar magic, but it's a fun action movie that ties into the Toy Story franchise in a very unique and satisfying way. I would recommend Lightyear to fans of the Toy Story franchise and to those who like sci-fi action adventure films. This movie's connection to the rest of the Toy Story franchise is tangential, so if you're looking for the toys you know and love, you'll be a bit disappointed. But if you think the idea of an in-universe movie is cool, then I think you'll really appreciate the tie-in to the franchise as well as all of the references. Toy Story fans will certainly get the most out of this, but it draws a ton of inspiration from sci-fi films of the 70s, 80s, and beyond. So if you like movies like that, this slightly grittier than usual Pixar film might satiate your space adventure appetite. If you liked Lightyear, I would recommend Toy Story 2. Really, any of the first three Toy Story films would be good recommendations here, but Toy Story 2 digs into Buzz Lightyear and his backstory a little more than the other films, and even features Zurg. If you liked the adventure and humor here, and are interested in an actual 90s film that served as a definite inspiration for elements of this movie, you should check out Galaxy Quest. And if you thought the concept of time dilation was interesting, I'd suggest Interstellar. That's another interesting sci-fi film with some similar ideas and really great visuals and cinematography. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen Lightyear? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, what's a fictional in-movie film that you wish was real? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you get some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this review, I'd appreciate it if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe while you're at it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainly Movies, the way life should be.